Steve Harvey stood on the Family Feud stage in his pristine white suit, the fabric catching the studio lights as he smiled at the camera. It was another day of taping at the Atlanta studio, and the energy was buzzing with the familiar excitement that came with every show. The Williams family from Houston was preparing to face off against the Chen family from San Francisco, and everything seemed perfectly normal. What Steve didn't know was that his production team had been quietly orchestrating something extraordinary for the past several weeks, and in just a few moments, he would witness one of the most powerful reunions in the show's long history. The Williams family walked onto the stage with warmth and confidence. Leading the group was Kennedy Williams, a 30-year-old guidance counselor whose smile was genuine but carried something deeper behind it. She wore a beautiful coral-colored dress that seemed to glow against her warm brown skin, her natural curls styled elegantly around her face. Beside her stood her husband Darius, a high school teacher with an easy confidence. The rest of the team consisted of Darius's mother Diane, his father Jerome, and his sister Vanessa. Steve greeted them with his characteristic enthusiasm, shaking hands and making everyone feel at home. "Welcome, welcome. The Williams family from Houston. How y'all doing today?" "We're doing wonderful, Steve," Kennedy responded, her voice bright and clear. "Now let me get to know y'all a little bit," Steve said, moving down the line with his microphone. "Kennedy, you're leading this family team today?" "Yes, sir, that's me." "And what do you do for a living?" "I'm a high school guidance counselor. I've been working with students for about 7 years now, helping them figure out their paths, college applications, all of that." "That's beautiful work," Steve said warmly. "I bet you've changed a lot of lives doing that." Kennedy smiled, and for just a moment, her composure wavered slightly. "I try to. I really do. I think everyone deserves someone in their corner, you know? Someone who doesn't give up on finding them when they're lost." The way she said it made Steve pause for just a fraction of a second. There was weight to those words, a deeper meaning that he couldn't quite place, but he continued smoothly, meeting the rest of the family. Diane worked as a church administrator. Jerome had recently retired from the Postal Service, and Vanessa was a dental hygienist. They were a warm, close-knit group, and their affection for Kennedy was obvious. The game began with the usual energy and excitement. The Williams family was doing well, showing great chemistry and racking up points. Kennedy was sharp with her answers, but Steve noticed she kept glancing toward the wings of the stage between rounds, as if expecting something or someone. During a commercial break, Steve walked over to Kennedy. He'd learned over the years to trust his instincts about contestants, and something was definitely going on beneath the surface here. "You doing okay, sweetheart?" he asked quietly. "You seem a little distracted." Kennedy looked at him, and her eyes suddenly filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. "I'm okay, Steve. It's just that today is really special, more special than anyone knows." "Special how?" Steve asked gently. Kennedy glanced at Darius, who nodded encouragingly. "Today marks 21 years since I last saw my twin sister. We were separated when we were young. Family circumstances. Everyone trying to do their best with a difficult situation. We kept in touch for a while, but then life happened. Moves, address changes, phone numbers changing. We lost contact, and I've been looking for her ever since." Steve felt his heart clench. "What's her name?" "Kendall. Her name is Kendall Parker now. She took our aunt's last name, which is why I've had such a hard time finding her. I've tried everything, Steve. Social media, people search websites, I even hired someone to help look. But you never stopped looking," Steve said. "Never," Kennedy confirmed. "Not for one day. She's my twin, my other half. I feel incomplete without her." Darius spoke up. "I've watched her search for 10 years, Steve, ever since we met. It's the first thing she does every morning, checking her email to see if maybe today is the day someone responds to one of her inquiries." Steve nodded slowly. He'd gotten very subtle signals from his producers during the break, the kind of signals that meant something big was about to happen. "Kennedy, let me ask you something. If you could say anything to your sister right now, what would it be?" Kennedy didn't hesitate. "I'd tell her that I never forgot her, that I never stopped being her sister, that every single day for 21 years I've thought about her and hoped she was happy and safe and loved. I'd tell her that I'm sorry we lost each other, and that if I could find her, I'd never let her go again." She was crying now, and Diane handed her a tissue while wrapping an arm around her shoulders. The stage manager called for places, and Steve returned to his position, his mind racing with possibilities. The game continued, and the Williams family made it to the fast money round. Kennedy volunteered to go first, and as she stood at the podium, Steve could see her taking deep breaths, trying to focus. "All right, Kennedy," Steve said warmly. "You ready to do this?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Kennedy replied. "Remember, you've got 20 seconds to answer 5 questions. Here we go. Name something you do every day." "Think about my sister," Kennedy answered immediately, her voice raw with emotion. The audience made a collective sound of sympathy. Steve paused for just a moment before continuing. "Name a place you wish you could go." "Wherever Kendall is," Kennedy whispered. "Name something you never give up on." "Family." "Name something that takes a long time." 21 years, Kennedy said, tears streaming down her face. "Name something worth waiting for." "A reunion," Kennedy managed to say as the buzzer sounded. The audience was completely silent except for the sound of people crying. Steve walked over to Kennedy with his handkerchief, his own eyes glistening. "Baby girl," he said softly, "those weren't game show answers. Those were prayers." Kennedy nodded, unable to speak. Darius came over and wrapped his arms around his wife, and Diane was crying openly now. Steve turned to address the audience, his voice thick with emotion. "You know, folks, I've been doing this show for a long time. I've seen families compete. I've seen people win money. I've seen all kinds of joy and excitement. But what we just witnessed right there was something else. That was a sister's love, spoken out loud for the whole world to hear." He paused, and then something unprecedented happened. Steve's executive producer, Sharon Morrison, walked onto the stage during active filming. In all the years Steve had been hosting Family Feud, this had never happened. Sharon was carrying a phone, and her face was a mixture of professionalism and barely contained emotion. "Steve," Sharon said, her voice clear enough for the microphone to pick up, "I need to interrupt. We have a phone call that Kennedy needs to take right now." Steve looked confused, but he'd learned to trust his team. "A phone call?" "Sharon, we're in the middle of taping." "I know," Sharon said firmly. "But this absolutely cannot wait. Trust me." Steve took the phone, completely bewildered. Kennedy was staring at them, her face showing confusion mixed with a desperate kind of hope. The audience was murmuring, everyone trying to figure out what was happening. "Hello?" Steve said into the phone. The voice on the other end was clear and warm. "Mr. Harvey? This is Dr. Michelle Chen. I'm a school psychologist in Chicago, and I'm calling because I understand you have someone very special on your show right now." Steve's eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. He looked immediately at Kennedy, whose hand had flown to her mouth. "Yes, ma'am. Kennedy Williams is right here, Mr. Harvey. I've been working with your producers for the past 3 weeks. You see, I belong to a professional organization for school counselors and psychologists, and about a month ago, I was browsing through member profiles. I came across a profile that mentioned something very specific. It said, 'Searching for my twin sister Kennedy, separated 21 years ago.'" Steve felt his throat tighten. "And you saw that profile?" "I did. And Mr. Harvey, I'd recently met someone at a conference, another counselor who talked about how she became a counselor because she understood what it felt like to lose someone important. She mentioned she had a twin sister she'd lost contact with named Kendall." Kennedy let out a sob, and Darius had to hold her up. The entire studio was on the edge of their seats. Dr. Chen continued, "I put 2 and 2 together, and I reached out to both of them. Mr. Harvey, I've been a psychologist for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like the connection these 2 women have maintained across distance and time. They've been video calling every single day since I connected them 3 weeks ago, learning everything about each other, making up for lost time." "That's beautiful," Steve said, his voice catching. "But here's the thing, Mr. Harvey. When I found out that Kennedy's husband had applied for your show months ago, Before they even reconnected, I reached out to your producers with an idea. Kendall has been searching for Kennedy just as long as Kennedy has been searching for her. And I thought, what better place for them to celebrate finding each other than on Family Feud in front of the whole world? Steve turned to Kennedy, who was shaking so hard that Diane and Darius were both holding her. Kennedy, honey, did you know about this? Kennedy shook her head violently. We've been talking every day, but she never said anything about coming here. She's in Chicago. I thought I wouldn't see her in person until next month when we planned our first visit. Steve smiled through his tears. Dr. Chen, is Kendall there with you? She is, Mr. Harvey. We're backstage. And when Kennedy gave those answers during Fast Money, Kendall was crying so hard I thought we'd have to delay this whole thing. Can I talk to her? Kennedy burst out. Please, can I talk to my sister? There was a rustling sound, and then a new voice came through the phone. It was slightly deeper than Kennedy's, but with the same warm quality, the same precise way of forming words. Kenny, the voice said, using a nickname that no one had called Kennedy in 21 years. Kenny, it's me. It's Kendall. Kennedy collapsed to her knees on the stage floor, the phone pressed to her ear. KK. Oh my God. KK, is it really you? It's really me, sis. I'm here. I'm really here. I can't believe this is happening, Kennedy sobbed. I've looked for you for so long. So long. I know, Kenny. I know. I've been looking for you too, every single day. Steve knelt down beside Kennedy, keeping his microphone close enough to pick up the conversation. The camera operators had moved in, capturing every moment of this raw, beautiful exchange. Where are you? Kennedy asked desperately. Dr. Chen said you're backstage? You're here? You're really here? I'm here, Kenny. I'm right here. And if it's okay with you, I'd really like to give my sister a hug. Kennedy looked up at Steve with eyes full of hope and disbelief. Can I see her, please? Steve stood up and turned toward the wings. Kendall Parker, would you come out here and reunite with your sister? The woman who walked onto the Family Feud stage was like looking at Kennedy through a mirror, but not an exact mirror. Kendall wore a stunning teal dress that complemented her sister's coral one perfectly, as if they'd planned it despite being apart. Her hair was styled in locks that fell past her shoulders, while Kennedy's was in curls, but their faces were remarkably similar. Same warm brown eyes, same high cheekbones, same way of holding themselves with quiet dignity, even while emotions overwhelmed them. Kennedy scrambled to her feet and ran across the stage. When the sisters collided in an embrace, the force of it nearly knocked them both over. They held each other so tightly it looked like they were trying to merge back into one person, as if 21 years of separation could be erased by the strength of their grip. You're here, Kennedy kept saying. You're really here. You're real. I'm here, Kendall confirmed, her voice muffled against her sister's shoulder. I'm here, Kenny. I found you. We found each other. They pulled back just enough to look at each other's faces, their hands coming up to touch each other's cheeks, hair, shoulders, as if confirming through touch what their eyes were seeing. You look just like I remembered, Kennedy said through her tears. Exactly like I remembered. You too, Kendall laughed, crying at the same time. You still have that little dimple when you smile. I used to dream about that dimple. They embraced again, and this time they just held each other while they cried. The studio audience was in tears. Even the production crew, who had known this was coming, were emotional watching it unfold. When the sisters finally stepped back again, still holding hands like they were afraid to let go, Steve approached them gently. Kendall Parker, welcome to Family Feud. Kendall turned to him with a tear-stained face and a radiant smile. Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Thank you for giving us this moment. Thank you for letting the whole world see what it means when sisters find their way back to each other. Steve guided both women to sit on the Family Feud steps, positioning himself so he could talk to them both. The game had been completely abandoned now. This was about something far more important than points or prizes. Tell me, Steve said softly. Take me back. What happened 21 years ago? Kennedy and Kendall looked at each other, and some silent communication passed between them. Kendall spoke first. Our mother was raising us alone in Houston. She worked so hard, multiple jobs, trying to give us everything we needed. Times were really tough financially. Our aunt in Denver offered to take one of us to give us better opportunities and help ease the financial burden. Kennedy picked up the story. Mom didn't want to split us up. She really didn't. But she also wanted what was best for us. It was supposed to be temporary, just until Mom got on her feet. But it didn't work out that way, Kendall continued. I went to Denver with Aunt Gloria. We visited in the summers at first, but then Aunt Gloria's job required her to relocate internationally for a few years. I went with her. The time zones, the distance, the cost of international calls back then. It all just made it harder. And then addresses changed, Kennedy added. Phone numbers changed. Mom moved, trying to find better work. Aunt Gloria moved. By the time we were teenagers and trying to stay in touch on our own, we'd lost the connections. I took Aunt Gloria's last name when I was a teenager, Kendall explained. She'd raised me, put me through school, been my guardian. It felt right, but it also meant that when Kennedy tried to search for me, she was looking for Kendall with our original last name. Every search came up empty, Kennedy said. Every avenue felt like a dead end. Steve shook his head in wonder. But you both kept looking. For 21 years, you both kept searching. She's my sister, Kennedy said simply. My twin. Half of who I am. How could I stop looking? I felt the same way, Kendall agreed. People would tell me to let it go, that too much time had passed. But I couldn't accept that. I couldn't believe that I'd lost my sister forever. Tell me about what happened when you found each other, Steve said. Kendall's face lit up. I got this email from Dr. Chen saying she'd seen my profile on the professional organization website. At first I thought it was spam. But then she said she'd met someone at a conference who mentioned having a twin sister named Kendall. My heart stopped. And Dr. Chen emailed me, Kennedy added, with almost the exact same message. She asked me to describe my sister, to tell her things only we would know. When Dr. Chen confirmed we were really who we said we were, she gave us each other's phone numbers, Kendall said. I sat there staring at Kennedy's number for probably 20 minutes before I could make myself dial. I was terrified. I was the same way, Kennedy admitted. When my phone rang and I saw it was a Chicago number, I knew it had to be her. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. But then she answered, Kendall said, looking at her sister with so much love. It was palpable. And she said, hello? And I knew it was her. Something in my soul just knew. And she said, Kenny? Kennedy continued, nobody's called me Kenny in 21 years. Nobody but her. And I just started crying. We talked for 6 hours that first day. Kendall laughed. Just catching up on everything. 21 years of life to share. We've talked every single day since then, Kennedy said. Video calls, text messages, emails. We've been making up for lost time. Steve turned to the Williams family, who had been watching the reunion with tears streaming down their faces. Darius, you knew about this? Darius nodded, grinning through his tears. The producers reached out to me about 3 weeks ago. It's been the hardest secret I've ever had to keep. Watching Kennedy talk to Kendall every day, seeing how happy she was to have found her sister, knowing that they were going to reunite here, but not being able to tell her, Diane spoke up. This family gained a daughter when Darius married Kennedy. That girl has been a blessing to all of us. And to see her whole again, to see her reunited with her sister, it's an answered prayer. Steve turned back to the twins. Now, I'm told that the production team has discovered some pretty interesting things about you two. Kennedy, you said you became a guidance counselor. Kendall, tell everyone what you do. Kendall smiled. I'm a school psychologist. I work with students who are struggling, help them navigate difficult circumstances. The audience made sounds of amazement at the parallel careers. Both of you working in education, helping young people, Steve observed. Both of you chose careers about helping people who feel lost. I don't think that's a coincidence. Kennedy and Kendall looked at each other, understanding passing between them. We both know what it feels like to lose someone and not know how to find them, Kennedy said softly. Maybe that's why we were drawn to help others, navigate difficult times. Now, here's something else. Steve said, Kennedy, your husband tells me you have a tradition. Every year on the anniversary of when you last saw your sister, you do something specific. What is it? Kennedy blushed slightly. I bake a chocolate cake. It was Kendall's favorite when we were young. I bake it, and I light candles. And I make a wish that we'll find each other. Kendall gasped. Kenny, I do the same thing. Same day, every year. I make chocolate cake, and I light candles, and I wish for you. The sisters stared at each other in wonder. We've been celebrating each other all these years, Kendall whispered. Even apart, we've been together. Have you two discovered other similarities since you reconnected? Steve asked. So many, Kennedy laughed. We both love to read mystery novels. We both are terrible at math, but great at writing. We both got married at 26. We both have this weird thing where we can't sleep if the closet door is open. And we both, Kennedy said, her voice growing emotional again, kept every single photo we had of each other from when we were young. I have this one picture of us at a birthday party, and I've carried it in my wallet for 21 years. Kendall reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photograph. Is this the one? She held it up, and it showed two little girls with matching smiles, their arms around each other, birthday hats on their heads. Kennedy pulled out her own wallet and extracted an identical photograph, just as worn from years of handling. The sisters held up their photos side by side, and the audience erupted in applause and tears. We've been carrying each other all this time, Kennedy said, literally carrying each other in our pockets, close to our hearts. Steve had to take a moment to compose himself. Now I understand that, Kendall, you brought some people with you? Kendall nodded. My husband Daniel is here, and Aunt Gloria came too. She's been wanting to see Kennedy again for so long. Can we bring them out? Steve asked. A moment later, Kendall's husband Daniel walked onto the stage, a tall man with kind eyes who immediately went to his wife's side. Behind him came an older woman, probably in her late 60s, whose face was streaked with tears. Aunt Gloria, Kennedy said, and she stood to embrace her aunt. Aunt Gloria, it's okay. It's all okay. Gloria held Kennedy tightly. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. We lost touch. I know, Kennedy soothed. I know you didn't mean for it to happen. You gave Kendall an amazing life. You gave her opportunities and love and everything she needed. Nobody did anything wrong. Life just happened. But you found your way back to each other, Gloria said, pulling back to look at both twins. My girls found their way back to each other. The families began to mingle on stage, introductions flying as Darius met Daniel, as Diane hugged Kendall. It was organized chaos, the beautiful chaos of families blending together. Steve let them have their moment before gently regaining control. Now, I've got to tell you something. We brought you here today under the pretense of playing Family Feud, and y'all did great in the game. But this moment, this reunion, this is bigger than any game. This is about family. Real family. Coming back together. He turned to face the cameras. So here's what we're going to do. Both families, the Williams family and Kendall's family, you're all going home today with the maximum prize. Because this isn't about winning a game anymore. This is about celebrating love and perseverance and never giving up on the people who matter most. The families tried to protest, but Steve held up his hand. And there's more. My foundation is going to sponsor your first family reunion. Both families, all together, wherever you want to go, all expenses paid. Because you deserve to make up for lost time. And you deserve to do it right. Kennedy and Kendall were crying again, holding each other and their families. Steve continued, and one more thing. We're going to work with Dr. Chen to create a scholarship fund in your names for students pursuing careers in counseling and psychology. Because what you two do, helping young people navigate difficult times, that's important work. And it came from your own pain, your own loss, and your own healing. The studio audience was on their feet, applauding and crying. Steve pulled the twins close for a photo, one on each side of him in his white suit. their contrasting dresses making a beautiful picture of reunion and joy. "Before we wrap up," Steve said, "I want to ask you both something. What does this mean to you? What does it mean to have found each other again?" Kennedy spoke first, her voice strong despite her tears. "It means I'm whole again. For 21 years, I felt like something was missing, like I was walking around with a piece of my heart somewhere else. And now it's back. She's back. And I don't ever want to feel that kind of incomplete again." Kendall nodded. "We lost 21 years together, but we have the rest of our lives ahead of us. Every holiday, every birthday, every important moment from now on, we'll share it. Our families are one family now." "And what would you say to those little girls who were being separated?" Steve asked gently. "If you could go back and talk to them, what would you tell them?" The twins looked at each other, and again that wordless communication passed between them. They answered together, their voices harmonizing. "We'd tell them not to give up. We'd tell them that love finds a way. We'd tell them that they'll always be sisters, no matter how much time or distance separates them." Steve nodded, his own eyes wet. "That's beautiful. That's really beautiful." As the taping finally came to an end, the families showed no signs of wanting to separate. They took countless photos, made plans for Thanksgiving, which was just a few weeks away. "Houston or Chicago?" Kennedy asked her sister. "Doesn't matter," Kendall replied, "as long as we're together." But they decided on Houston, and the planning began immediately, with Diane and Gloria already discussing recipes and traditions they could blend together. "You know what the best part is?" Kendall said to her sister. "We don't have to make up for lost time. We just have to move forward together. With all this family," Kennedy added, gesturing to the group around them. "We didn't just find each other. We found this whole beautiful blended family." Steve watched them go, his heart full. Later, in an interview about the episode, he would say, "In all my years of doing television, I've had memorable moments. But watching those sisters reunite, watching them realize they'd never really been apart because they'd carried each other in their hearts all along, that changed something in me. It reminded me that the best surprises are about love winning, about people refusing to give up on each other, about families finding their way back together." The episode, when it aired, became one of the most watched in Family Feud history. The reunion clip went viral across social media, shared millions of times. Separated siblings found hope in Kennedy and Kendall's story. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from other twins. Hundreds of twins reached out to Kennedy and Kendall, some sharing their own separation and reunion stories, others expressing gratitude for never having been separated from their twin. All of them understanding the unique bond that connects two people who shared their first home together. The twins left the studio together, their arms linked, their steps synchronized without trying. They had 21 years of separation behind them and an entire lifetime of togetherness ahead. They had learned that love perseveres, that family bonds can survive anything, and that sometimes the best ending is really just a beautiful new beginning. The chocolate cakes they'd been baking every year as a memorial became a celebration instead. The wishes they'd been making for reunion became gratitude for the reunion that had happened. The photos they'd carried in their wallets for decades were joined by new photos, hundreds of them, documenting holidays and visits and ordinary afternoons spent on video calls. They had lost 21 years, but they'd gained something precious in return. The knowledge that their love for each other had survived the separation, that their bond as twins was unbreakable, and that when you refuse to give up on the people you love, beautiful things can happen. Steve Harvey kept a photo from that day in his office. It showed Kennedy and Kendall in their contrasting dresses, their arms around each other, their faces radiant with joy and disbelief and pure love. Underneath, he'd written a single sentence: "Love never gives up, and family always finds a way home." And every time he looked at that photo, he remembered the day Family Feud became more than a game show. The day it became the stage for sisters to find their way back to each other, for families to blend and grow, and for love to prove once again that it's the most powerful force in the world. The phone call that interrupted the show that day didn't just bring sisters together. It brought hope to everyone who has ever lost someone they love, everyone who has ever searched for a missing piece of their heart, and everyone who has ever wondered if happy endings are real. They are real. Kennedy and Kendall proved it, and their story, told on a game show stage in front of millions, became a testament to the enduring power of sisterhood, the strength of love, and the simple, profound truth that family is forever, no matter what.